there is so many plants, hundreds of plants, well over 100. I actually don't know at this point. I'm going to walk around and do a count. So I'm not going to be able to share with you every single thing in this video. It would make for a very long video. But we will do a quick run around, and we'll also try some fruits today. Starting right here. This is a raised bed, but not just any raised bed. This is a hidden hugelkultur bed. So what is that? Prior to filling this up with soil, what I did is I put a whole bunch of branches, some stumps, and different plant debris, and filled that up about 3/4 of the way, and then put the compost and the soil on top of that, and thought I was going to let it rest last year for the most part. But we actually had some really good harvest from this raised bed, and this year I put some fresh compost about 4 inches, and you can see it's already sunken down on the edge of the raised bed now a couple more inches. So it's just breaking down, it's feeding the plants. We've got some beautiful Japanese eggplants growing here. We got some little eggplants started, nice beautiful flowers. And then behind that, oh, we've got a volunteer fava bean. I didn't do any manual planting of fava this year, and we've got a few different little patches of the fava bean. So we'll be collecting more of those seeds, planting those out. Don't know if we'll be eating much of that this year. One of my favorite plants, actually, so I wish I would have got some more planted, but I'll show you the other favas growing as well. On the back end of this raised bed, we've got some early girl tomatoes, and I did the math, and it looks like these 4 plants should produce somewhere about 40 clusters of tomatoes, and I've got other tomato plants too. So I'm looking forward to getting some ripe homegrown tomatoes, so I don't have to buy them from the market anymore. And then you see we've got a volunteer green. This is a perennial green growing in here. Here's another one. I think this is probably going to be a tranchuta. We got some basil. Now over on this side we've got another hidden hugelkultur raised bed, and I planted out 3 rows of okra in this bed and added a bunch of fresh compost that I sifted that I didn't allow the chickens to pick through. And as a result, we've got all these volunteer plants, weeds coming up in here. But I'm really surprised because all the weeds that are popping up, if you want to call them that, are things that are useful. They're not an annoyance. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. We've got some lamb's quarters. This is an edible green. You can pick these leaves, throw them in a salad. They're wonderful. And there's little lamb's quarters growing all throughout here. We've also got some ground cherries, and there's ground cherries popping up everywhere. I am going to have to do some thinning here because these plants will get rather large. So I'll probably just harvest the lamb's quarters, transfer out some of these ground cherries. I've got them volunteering throughout the food forest. They're a wonderful plant. You can see back here we've got some purslane, high in omegas. You can eat these leaves, put them in smoothies, salads. They're delicious. Here's some borage over there. And we also got, let me see, we got some amaranth popping up. A couple different kinds. This is going to be a larger amaranth that I planted from seed. I think it's called the giant orange amaranth. But we've got both wild, and so down here we've got a little bit of wild. And you know the difference because the wild is really small, stays small. And the seeded that I planted a couple years ago has much larger leaves, gets much taller. But the amaranth leaves are edible. It's not just the seeds that have edible uses. And then we've also got some perennial greens popping up in here. And we've even got, I'm not sure what this is. It kind of looks like could be a cucumber. So there's a lot growing on in this raised bed. Then on the back side here we have hopness. Now hopness is a vining crop that produces edible tubers below the surface, and they're similar to a potato. I actually haven't even had one yet, but I've heard great things, and I actually planted this out for last season. I let them grow and fill the trellis, and instead of harvesting, I left all the tubers in the soil, and they, just to see, you know, how dense of a population I could get here, they all came back up. They're spreading out. They're even spreading out halfway into the bed here, which is fine. But just a beautiful vining crop, fast grower, edible tubers. And of course we got some more volunteer perennial greens. Just about all the perennial greens you see growing in my garden this year popped up from seeds that were dropped. Now here's a bunch of seeds that I will be collecting, but you can see the birds have really been tearing into here. And this is one of the issues when I'm collecting seeds. If I don't cover them, the birds will really have a feast, and they did so on this bunch here. But you can see the greens are now starting to pop back out, and we'll still get a good harvest of seeds here. There's still some nice plump seed pods. Back over here we've got a Hass avocado. This is a new addition. We're trying a different variety this year. Tried Mexicola twice and didn't have success, so we're going to go ahead and switch it up. Try the Hass. It's looking very healthy, doing well in its new spot there. Now this here is a volunteer oak tree. This was cut to the ground when we arrived here, and it just kind of sprouted up and kept growing. It's really close to the fence line, so I'm going to have to do some pruning, but I'm keeping it for now. It's beautiful. And besides that, the oak, you know, if I am to chop some of this down, can be used in the growing of some mushrooms. So it makes a really good wood chip or a log. If you want to inoculate it with some spawn, you can do that. So that's the plan here. You can see the grapevine that I planted on either side of the chicken run here. These have really taken off, and they're doing exactly what I wanted them to do, trailing along the sides and the top. I'll help to train these. We got another one over there on the other side. Got the pineapple guava, some blooming artichoke there, Pakistan mulberry. We've got goji berries all along the fence line there. Some more perennial greens I'm letting go to seed. Here's another goji. We got, these are hugel pots. If you missed that video, these are mint hugel pots. So these were filled with little logs and then filled with soil. Then I topped it with some dry stall, which is commonly used in boarding and raising horses, just to help keep moisture. If you've got a low spot in the ground, maybe a lot of moisture collecting, it helps to absorb the moisture and keep things dry. But it makes a wonderful top mulch for your pots. So I put that in last year. So anyway, we've got peppermint, lemon balm, spearmint. Over here to the left, again, more volunteer greens. We've got Jerusalem artichokes here, but not just any Jerusalem artichoke. These are purple Jerusalem artichokes. And these plants get much taller than my traditional beige colored tubers, but they both produce some nice beautiful yellow flowers. So over here we got the pomegranate, one of the pomegranate trees, and we had a ton of blossom on this tree, and it looked like they were starting to turn into fruits like this. And this is the third year now where the majority of those dropped, which is a shame because they're getting pollinated for sure. We had tons of bees, hummingbirds flying all over this plant, but there's still plenty of flowers, so maybe it just balanced itself out. We'll see what we end up with. Here we've got a white mulberry, and this was covered with fruit, and as soon as they were ripe, in one day, we woke up in the morning, we came out here, they were all gone. So the birds got the white mulberries this year. Oh well, just how it goes, not a big deal. Got kind of a jungle going on over here. This is just the one area of the food forest that I never got in there and cleaned as of yet. But you see the hop vines trailing up. I had meant to do a bigger trellis here. I may still do that, but it's just kind of covering all of this other mallow and stuff now and creating like a bush, so it's kind of cool. So here's another pomegranate. And this one's just got a few flowers. This is a younger tree. planted a little later than the Wonderful. This is the white variety. Or no, this is the Wonderful, and that's the white, excuse me. So over here we've got Santa Rosa plum tree. Just loaded with plums. And fortunately I have 2 of these trees. The other one is in a 2-in-1 planting with a Loquat. And that tree was attacked heavily by some pests this year, aphids and such. And there were some whiteflies and aphids all over it. And I opted not to do any organic spray with like a neem oil because it was covered with ladybugs and ladybug larvae. And they were helping me to eradicate the problem naturally. And they did a pretty good job, but the trees were pretty set back this year. Most of the fruit fell. Some of the limbs even died. So over here we've got the Peter's honey fig. And I really need to get this camera going correctly here. It's been a while, I'm a little rusty. We've got plenty of figs that are ripening up. Really looking forward to it. And just below this tree we've got a ton of volunteer greens. I had one perennial green plant growing over here. It's seeded all over the place, and so we've got some thinning to do. I'm just going to harvest thin. They're fine growing close together like that. We did have some white flies on some of the greens this year. This has happened the last couple years, not a big deal. Some of the plants I did give a little bit of neem oil to. All natural, organic way to deal with it. Now over here we've got the asparagus patch that I planted earlier this year. And you can see now it's starting to fern out. There were some spears that came up. I left them. They turn into these ferns, and they're going to help to grow those roots under the ground, help to proliferate this asparagus patch. Over here we've got a strawberry patch and a fig tree. So we had some nice red strawberries. The chicken's been getting most of them. You can see it's still pumping out more strawberries, and a lot of runners that I need to prune back. But I've got a few different patches of strawberries growing, not a big deal. Over here we have the Florida King peach. Smells delightful. Those are just about ready to go. And here we have the pineapple quince tree. See, this limb here needs to be cut back. Pineapple quince is not eaten out of hand typically, but it's processed, and you can make different things out of it, pies and chutneys and jams and that sort of thing. Over here we've got the 2-in-1 brown and black turkey fig trees, and they're just now shooting out their new growth. So as this continues to grow out, it's going to continue to put off little figs on either side. It's doing really well. And over here we've got some more asparagus coming up. I had pretty much given up on this patch growing over here, but it came back pretty strong this year. That's cool. Over here we've got the nectarine tree. We got some good nectarines going. This tree's doing well, looking healthy. Should be the best harvest we've gotten so far. And some of the trees still not producing, which is fine. Got another peach tree here. A lot of little peaches growing. Later ripener than the Florida King, so we get an extended harvest. Over here we've got the cold hardy kiwi starting to grow up this trellis. Just put this trellis in this year. Over here we got the sugar cane and some lemongrass. Then back on this trellis, this is the passion fruit vine. Really taken off like crazy. It's actually growing into this fabric material here, which is kind of cool, because I'd like it if it would fill up with a natural look. The grapes, doing wonderful. We've got something like maybe 35 bunches of grapes growing on these 2 different plants. These are the Thompson red flameless or red flame seedless grape. It's doing very, very well. And no almond harvest to speak of this year. Debating on doing something with this tree. I'll get into that on a later episode. And this is another tree that was attacked by some insects. We still got a few fruit. So over here we got an apricot tree, and they're getting close. And we've got just an apium tree right here doing extremely well. Fruits are getting really close now. Towards this stage I stop watering, because if you don't, you start getting these little splits. That's pretty common. One of the reasons they're not sold in market is because of those splits. But yeah, we're just like days away from starting to really reap some harvest here. See, the birds aren't waiting. Back over here, a couple new additions. We got a strawberry guava and a lemon guava. First year, and they're putting off some nice flowers for us. Doing well. Back over there, we've got the calabash or the oppo. Now on this arbor here, this garden arbor, we've got pole beans and Armenian cucumbers that are starting to take off. They're really waiting for that heat to kick in. We've been relatively cool up until now, so some things are kind of confused. They start to take off, and then we have some really cool nights and they slow down. But it has made for easy transplanting of plants. Here we got that new addition. This is the Candy Heart Pluary Plum Cherry Hybrid. This was cut right there not too long ago, and now we've got some really nice structure developing here. So here we've got an Asian pear tree, and this tree is taking off and doing wonderful. And what I'm thinking I'm going to actually do is focus on this tree, leave it here, and I've got a 2-in-1 planting here. This other pear tree, which is multi-grafted, has given me nothing but problems since I started growing it with disease. I've had to prune so much out of this tree just to try to keep the disease at bay, and it just keeps coming back. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and probably remove that tree and just focus on this Asian pear, which puts off, it looks extremely healthy, and it puts off some nice fruit for us. Got a little cleanup to do over in this area. So we do have some nice apples starting to grow up on us here. I don't know, probably about 75 or so apples. And so here's the Santa Rosa plum tree I was telling you about that had the problem. You can see I need to actually prune this whole branch out. This whole scaffold branch. It's pretty much died as a result. But much of the tree is now springing back to life. And it probably would have been better to actually remove all the fruit. But I just kind of let things go natural. And so we're going to survive this and move forward. We got a lot of fruit over on this side here with the Loquat. And we've got some more artichoke plants in bloom. Beautiful purple flowers there. I'm surprised it's not loaded with bees. Usually is. Loquats are ripe, and at this point, not all of them are ripe, but at this point I'm going to need to start pulling some harvest and bringing them inside because I've been competing with the squirrels. Let me pick one of these. Oh, it's so nice. I think we're going to have a mono meal of loquats very soon. Let me bite into this. Look at their juice. Oh. I hate to waste it, but I wanted to show you that. Loquats can be a bit of an acquired taste. They can be a bit tart for some. I wouldn't go as far as to call them sour unless they're underripe. But I love them. I feel an energy boost as soon as I eat one. Just loaded with vitamin C. Those are the seeds. Here we've got a red currant. It's done a lot of growth this year, but not really putting off any berries. It did flower, but the berries didn't come around. But over back here, kind of hiding out, we've got another currant. There we go. And these are younger bushes, so not huge harvest yet, but it's actually thriving pretty good back there with all the shade, which is good. Down here we've got a nice patch of ashitaba. We've also got some taro root. Also makes another edible tuber and a tropical looking plant at that. We've got yacon popping up over here. This is a sea buckthorn. Ashitaba is great to add into juices and smoothies or to make tea. Over here we got a compost heap that we went ahead and planted some sweet potato greens in there, and there's some potatoes. There's also some pumpkin coming up down here. And we also plugged in some Sweet 100 tomatoes. They're all growing well. Over here we got a bell pepper patch, another volunteer green. Another volunteer green back there. And here is the strawberry potato tower. Was looking a lot healthier earlier. Here's a ripe strawberry. Little guy. But the greens have already started to die back. And at one point, this fell over, unfortunately. And some of the soil came out, created some damage. Also, the chickens were coming around picking off the berries, so I had to cover it. Still turning out cool. Got some blueberry bushes. New addition. Decided to put in some blueberries. There's another one here. And another one here. I'll be talking more about these plants a little later. But we got some watermelon back there. And some hollyhock flowers. This is a Meyer lemon tree. And we've got the cardoon, the cousin of the artichoke, getting ready to explode with some flowers there. And just under the cardoon, these big leaves here are horseradish. You can actually toss a little bit of that leaf in a salad, add a little zing, a little spice. but it's, again, the tuber, the root actually, that we're actually trying to harvest. And I like to make some healing winter elixirs, help keep colds and flus away with the horseradish. Back here we got a persimmon, and then there's some sunflowers behind that. We've got the compost sifting mixer here. It's made a huge difference in the garden this year, being able to create that compost. And if you look here and there, you'll find little hidden plants like the strawberry hiding under here. There's another one over there. Pond is doing wonderful. Fish are healthy. Need to add some water into this pond. And I put up this shade sail just above it, and I put it here in a way so that the pond's never completely shaded, but during the hottest time of the day, around 3 p.m., when it's getting full sun exposure, it's actually 75, almost 80% covered in shade, which makes a big difference, keeping the temperature down and also helping to keep the string algae at bay. And what I noticed too with the shade sail is it kind of floats up and down and creates kind of a fan under here. So it also creates just a cooler space to hang out at. And I put up these LED string lights, which are really nice at night. Kind of hard to capture on camera. But yeah, these are LED. Really cool. And we've got, here's a volunteer green here. Just beautiful large leaves, and it came from this plant here, which I was really excited about. This is another unique variety, just from propagating, seeds from some of the healthiest perennial greens that I grow back here, and now I'm letting it go to seed so we can proliferate the plant. See the stalk, robust and healthy. As you get lower, it's like a tree. It's like a tree. You see all that ashitaba back there? Every day I come out here and have myself a few of these gomi berries. They are delicious. Just look at the color on that. Whoops. When they're really, really ripe, just soft. That's when they're super sweet and there's no tartness. When they just look ripe but they're not super soft, they're a bit tart. I like them both ways. There's the seed. Save those and grow more plants. See the iris here, about to bloom out. Got calla lilies, some basil. Atop this hugel, we have the kabocha squash, our favorite squash to grow. That's really filling in nicely amongst the purple tree collars that came up after I chopped and dropped the more mature plants. You got a lot more plants now popping up here. And over on this hugel culture, we've got crookneck, zucchini, and what was the other one I'm growing here? Why am I forgetting now? I forgot. Here we've got some mugwort, longevity spinach. Now the comfrey needs to be chopped back at this point. Super beautiful. The hummingbirds really love the flowers, I've noticed, so I let a lot of my comfrey get a lot larger. I also removed a bunch of comfrey out of my garden. Just found that I didn't need as much as I was using as I planted. near the base of the fruit trees especially, I found that it wasn't as beneficial as I had learned about just through practice over the years. Some of these comfrey plants, the roots don't just grow straight down, they also will grow towards the root base of your trees and such. And so when they're smaller it's fine, but as they really start to get bigger, they become, I wouldn't say invasive, but they do take their share of nutrients and stuff. So I've been taking some of those out, and we'll see how that goes. Comfrey is kind of a hassle to get out of the garden, but I'm not afraid of that. We'll be able to deal with it. You can see all the nice wisteria pods. First they're little, then they get bigger and green, and then they turn into this blacker tone and just this nice velvety, it's hard to believe that's a plant really. It just feels like velvet. There's a ton of wisteria seeds I could be collecting here. Had a nice bloom this season, this early spring. Here we got another pineapple guava, and if you didn't know, the flowers are also edible. So we're just gonna pull this guy off right here, and we're gonna have ourselves a little snack. It's sweet. I'm trying to think of what I could compare it to. Kind of funny, but what it kind of tastes like is when I was a kid eating that garbage called wax candy. It'd be like in the shape of a molded set of teeth or something. It has kind of that taste, just not as waxy. And this is natural, of course. Here we got the Valencia orange, just loaded. Loaded, loaded, loaded. Little fruit everywhere. This is a great juicing orange. And my new juice protocol that I've been doing, definitely be juicing a bunch of oranges. Okay, here's another strawberry patch back here where I just removed the runners yesterday. And we're just getting the heat starting up now, so should have some nice strawberries coming real soon. Here we got a jujube tree, little flowers being pushed out all over the tree. We got another jujube over here. You can see how tall it's getting. These trees are going to need some pruning to keep them in check. But I'm really hoping to get a decent harvest this year. We shall see. Got a ceanothus here. Over here we got the aronia berry shrubs. And now they're finally starting to connect and create more of a hedge, which was the idea when I planted here. Just have a hedge of aronia berries, but lots of little berries starting to grow. Very high in antioxidants, 3 times that of blueberries. So wonderful to put into a smoothie. Not the best tasting out of hand, although I do like it. Some people, again, it's like an acquired taste, but if you add them into a smoothie, it turns it bright purple. So you know you're getting all those nutrients, and it tones down the flavor if you put like some coconut water and a banana, some dates in there. But I love them out of hand, especially, again, just like with the gomi, when they're really ripe and they're soft, that's when they're the best. This is just some carrot flowers. We left a little bunch of carrots in the ground, hoping to collect some seed. We had some really nice carrots grow over here. It's a nice, beautiful flower. The leaves of the carrot plant are edible as well. You can throw those into a juice. You can saute them however you like. Got another patch of sunchokes over here. So the traditional Jerusalem artichoke. Back over here, there's some volunteers, a volunteer green over here. Some onions coming up. This is a Rose of Sharon. This is what I want to fill in this space. It's in the hibiscus family. And down over here and throughout the food forest, a lot of times you'll miss this because I forget to point down, but you got little weeds that pop up, like here's some more wild amaranth, edible leaves. Here's some more purslane over here, and those pop up everywhere. Whenever I see them pop up, I leave them. Here's some more purslane, more amaranth. Here's a ground cherry, more purslane. But things are coming along great. It's a wonderful year this year. We've had good weather, good rains coming in, and the whole design is just really coming together, and we're starting to see those volunteer plants come through. And real soon we'll be harvesting some of those apricots and apriums and peaches and plums. But for right now, we're eating the loquat, the gomi berry, the greens, and some of the zucchinis are actually almost edible now. Let's see. I saw a little guy growing in here the other day. No, just little babies still. We'll be getting some zucchinis real soon. That covers most of it. We have the pussy willow there, which is a good rooting hormone plant, or to make a aspirin at home. We've also got some cucumbers that are starting to grow up. They're going to vine up this trellis here. We've got different patches of hot peppers I didn't really touch on. So that's the update. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining me today, and I hope everyone's having a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Hope you're able to spend some time out in the garden, spend some time out in the sun with family and friends, and enjoy your day. Good health first in your life. You'll be happy you did, because really, you don't have your health, nothing else really matters, right? Until next time, this is Dan from plantabundance.com. Take care. I'll be talking to you again soon.